57-yard touchdown run by the magical quarterback, Lamar Jackson.
Big Keith Trailer, look at him rumble.
Episode 3, touching down for the Utter Punts, blitzing the NFL conversation from right here in the UK. Week 1's in the bag. The punts are ready to discuss what went down and what's coming up.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl. Touchdown! No! No! 24-yard attempt. Oh, he hits the upright. It's no good. Derek Johnson, the all-time leading tackler in the history of the Chiefs. And he misses it. That's impossible. The Cardinals have knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs.
Utter Punts steaming into the conversation like TJ Watt smashed into quarterbacks before he ripped his peck off on Sunday. This is an NFL podcast made by UK fans of the National Football League. We correctly predicted every single game from our previews in the last episode. We're not playing games. I'm sports journalist and Giants fan Liam Bradford, and the Giants got to win. Go on then. I've got 2 Utter Punts alongside me. A happy Vikings fan down in Birmingham, Dave Keane.
Yeah, I am happy, and I'm happy because it's a victory day for all of us. All of our teams have won. It'll probably be the only time this season because the Giants aren't very good, Liam.
Trust me when I say his second take was happier than his first. Alongside me here in Manchester is Ravens man Dan Horton.
Yeah, we're a bit later this week. We've been watching the Nathaniel Hackett guide to 2-minute drills, and it took far longer than expected.
It certainly wasn't 2 minutes. That's all I'm going to say. We've got the big game reviews, fantasy league updates, and the punts look ahead to week 2. Thanks for being with us. Oh yes, first weekend in the bag, and it was an absolute belter as well. I don't think any of us saw some of the stuff that was coming. However, it does have to be said that Utter Punts saw everything coming, which was quite impressive. We'll get onto that a little bit later. Thought we'd touch on some of the headlines of this week. Shall we start with Sunflower Seed Gate? Dave, yeah. Why don't you explain this? Because you sent a picture around in the Utter Punts WhatsApp group earlier that looked a little dodgy.
Yeah, I got it from my friend who's a Browns fan, and basically there's a Browns player holding what is apparently a bag of sunflower seeds. I then Googled sunflower seeds and checked about 300 pictures. I can't find any that are that colour of green, but I'm sure that somewhere there might be one. Maybe
is
it's flavoured.
On the bench?
Yeah, and in a Ziploc bag during the game.
Looks more like oregano than it does sunflower seeds. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. So some form of herbal remedy, most likely. Yeah.
Next headline I've spotted: Saquon Barkley. All right, we've spoken about this briefly, a couple of us, and how good to see him back and not looking like he's about to snap in half every time he starts running.
Giants have won a game after this.
Yes, they have. Let's talk about the Giants.
I don't think there's anybody that doesn't root for Saquon Barkley. I think he's always been a pretty good guy. He's always been a bit unlucky. The tag this year was, how are we going to see it? Or I think people had started to just give up on him a little bit. You saw him dropping sort of fantasy ADP, and you saw a few of these things, and the Giants are a bit broken. They were looking to ship him in the off-season a little bit, get some value. But watching a player like that who's gone through those injuries and really sort of have a game like that against not a bad team. The Titans are a good side and certainly good against the run, but I think the contrast in that game was brilliant. You saw sort of Tay Crowder knock Derrick Henry right off his toes, and on the other side of the ball, Saquon's running through them, and it was a real sort of change in tempo of that game, because the game should have been over, and his big run in the second half was I think it was the biggest play from scrimmage of the week, and he looked fantastic, and it gave them just a real boost, and it was more than the run. It gave them all a bit of confidence that they could break through, and after that they ran away with it, really, and they should have won it easily.
I thought it was great to see him back. He was an absolute specimen when he came out of college. Everyone on draft Twitter thought he was going to be running back for the ages. The injuries were an absolute crying shame. I honestly think that the Giants themselves faced an opponent that was kind of tailor-made for their defense. So a run-first team going up against your big lugs in the middle, who probably is the best left over from your old general manager. Kind of played to your strengths. I think that your defense will have a lot more difficulty against passing first attacks, and just sneak it in here. Glad the Vikings are one of those now.
Yeah, I also think that Daniel Jones looks like a different quarterback when he's got a fit Saquon in front of him. So let's just wait and see what happens there. Next headline is Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, saying to all of the Cowboys fans that think the season's over already after one game, and there's a few of those knocking about on Twitter, by the way, that they shouldn't worry because he's seen David slay the giant. And I think that means that he's likening the Cowboys to David and the rest of the NFL to the giant. And last time I checked, they'd sold out 190 straight at AT&T Stadium at 80,000 people a time. I'm pretty sure they're the giant and they've just cocked it up, Dan.
Well, if you go back to our first episode, they were favourites for the NFC East, and we said they were a joke then, and they've got less of a chance now. So they'll never be an underdog. Everyone in the NFL sees Cowboys away and looks at it as a game that they want to go and play play well in, because it's just a scalp you want to take. I think the Packers have that as well, but the Cowboys have it more than anybody. America's team. And going up there and sticking it to them is always a good thing, and the Bengals get to feast there this weekend.
Indeed. I can't even remember the name of their backup quarterback, but he played
Cooper
against
Rush.
the Vikings. There we go. He played against the
Rush.
Vikings last year and beat us. So he's capable of playing an NFL offense, but it's going to be a different kettle of fish, I think, going up against Joe Burrow as opposed to Kirk Cousins while he's shackled in our old offenses. So, yeah, I think all in all, Dallas definitely are not in any way, shape or form an underdog, a David, if you like. I've been to AT&T Stadium. Ask me why I went there.
Why did you go to AT&T Stadium, Dave?
I went there for WrestleMania, mate.
Yes, that's the way to do it, Dave. Yes, Dave.
But it is a magnificent stadium, and a lot of the Dallas Cowboys fans that I met were great, but there was an awful lot of them. They're never going to be an underdog. They know that. They still consider themselves to be America's team, and even though Mr. Jones is now trying to play things down, it's just not reality.
I think he's just trying to avoid having to refund all the Super Bowl pre-selling tickets they sell at the Cowboys. I think that might have something to do with it. But if they protect the quarterback the way they did, and we said their line was a problem, I don't think Cooper Rush is going to last too long either, and they'll be on to the third string quarterback in a couple of weeks.
It's all right. I'm pretty sure Phil Rivers has had 7 months at home with the kids now. He's probably about right to come back and join the NFL for a bit of a rest, isn't he?
Yeah, Colin Kaepernick's coming back. Working
Yeah,
out,
because
isn't he?
that's going to go down brilliantly well in Texas, USA. Look, while we're talking about quarterbacks in Dak Prescott and his injury, which will come up again a little bit later, I'm sure, on Utter Punts, are we in a new era of quarterback now? I mean, has it moved on again? We've seen quarterbacks throw in 2 and 3 touchdown passes for 300 yards this weekend, and have that being considered not a great performance. You know, you've got to be throwing 4 touchdown passes for 300 yards. You've got to be rushing yards. You've got to be stiff-arming people for fun, Josh Allen, whilst you're dual threat. Dan, are we in a completely new era now of quarterback?
I don't think we're there completely. There's a certain transition going on. So if you think of the last 10 years, you've had Peyton Manning retired, but he was an absolute field general, but never ran. You had Drew Brees, who was the same, absolute pocket master. You've still got Brady and Rodgers still playing, although Brady says he's retiring this year. He said that last year. And you wouldn't look too far past Brady and Rodgers for your quarterback of the season this year. Rodgers is the double MVP for the last 2 years. But you have to say that the players coming out of college now, and Josh Allen and Lamar and Patrick Mahomes, they lead that way. But then you get a player like Justin Herbert, who has come into the league at the same time, but is more of an old-fashioned pocket-style quarterback, and is incredibly effective. And some of the throws he did on Sunday, just watching him, were incredible. I think it depends on what you want to do. Herbert has a lot of weapons around him, and they set up a great O-line. Obviously, a more mobile quarterback, you have to worry about protection a little bit less because they can escape pocket. They can extend plays a little bit more. But if you find someone with the talent, and players like Rodgers see the plays happening before they do, and he doesn't need to be fast because the ball's out before he even gets there. So we're in a transition, certainly, and I think in 10 years' time, you'll be looking at really athletic Malik Willis type prospects coming into the league and making a statement.
Dan has done a pretty masterly summary there. The only thing I'd say in addition to that is what you've got is a change in culture where you have better athletes now at younger ages being encouraged to become quarterbacks, whilst in the past, for whatever reason, they would have been pushed into being running backs or wide receivers. So you've got a whole new catchment pool coming through where you can see the change. Herbert is a fantastic example of that traditional pocket passer, but you shouldn't underestimate his athleticism either. I think a lot depends on the form of offense that you're in, the style of football club that you are at. And I think that can be seen in terms of the success that Lamar was able to get when he became MVP, primarily as a running quarterback. But you can see his transition now where he's rounding out his game and he's getting better at the passing side of things, and maybe as well Baltimore are starting to allow him to open up the playbook a little bit, which will help them all the more. So yeah, it's a cycle for me. I think you're going to get to a point where offenses are going to be going towards a more traditional pocket style quarterback, but you're going to have athletes who are playing in that role, and I think it's going to be much more difficult for the likes of Tom Brady to come through, because he wasn't an athlete. All he had was the quickness of his mind and his work ethic, which he turned into being the best player of all time. But he's never been an athlete, which is probably why he's got the longevity he has.
Really excited. We'll talk more about Mahomes and Herbert a little bit later on when we preview some of the games this weekend. Of course, the Chargers at the Chiefs in week 2, so we will wait and see what everybody's got to say about that. Let's take a look back, shall we, at what happened in week 1, specifically in the games that we previewed last week. Here's a roundup. Let's have a quick review then of the 5 Sky Sports games last weekend. It was a blowout in the opening game of the 2022 season, with the Buffalo Bills turning up at SoFi Stadium to hammer the Rams 31 points to 10. Josh Allen showing again why he's right up there with the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and his mean stiff arm to Nick Scott was easily my favourite moment of the opening weekend. The Bills' defense is almost as special as the offense though. Matt Stafford brought down no fewer than 7 times in California. That's his most sacks ever as a Ram. Von Miller has traded LA for Orchard Park, and he says going back to California was special for him.
LA has a special place in my heart. Super Bowl 56 I always have a special place in my heart. And my teammates over there and all the coaches and the infrastructure of the team, they always have a special place in my heart. It felt like I was playing against my brothers over there. You want everybody to, come out healthy. You want everybody to, have a good game, but you want the guys over here to score a little bit more, and you want to win the game. So we got that done, and everybody balled out today. Everybody on the defense, everybody in the offense. It was a great game.
There's already huge pressure on the Patriots and Bill Belichick. I mean, when isn't there? When you've been the team everyone loves to hate for over a decade, people are going to revel when you lose 20 points to 7 against the Dolphins in Miami. It was an incredible debut for Mike McDaniel, who's been in training to take a head coach's job since his internship at Denver back in 2005. A solid D, some ridiculously quick options in offense. See Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert. It's just how the Dolphins bagged their opening weekend win. In fact, Tua Tagovailoa called Tyreek a cheat code after helping the quarterback to 270 passing yards and a touchdown. Minnesota's the next stop, and the Vikings proving why utter punts were dead right last week. How on earth were they the underdogs going into this one against the Packers side with a weak and untested offense? The Vikings coming out 23-7 winners against the Pack. Justin Jefferson, the only place to start. 184 yards chalked off his 2,000-yard season target and 2 touchdowns too. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, very excited. I mean, feel like football again. I feel like a little kid today, waking up this morning, just excited for the game. I mean, especially for this type of rivalry. I live for these type of big games.
Also, honourable mention for the ballsy play calling of new head coach Kevin O'Connell, who made the decision to go for it early in the game on 4th down to score that touchdown, set the tone for the rest of the game. Absolutely brilliant. Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay, meanwhile, have their work cut out. The veteran quarterback's first game without Davante Adams was a frustrating one. He's going to be hoping to get some of the O-line back fit as well after playing the majority of the second half with 3 backups. Anyone doubting Tom Brady? Anyone at all? 45 years old, and he looked very much like some of the younger versions of Tom Brady on the night as the Bucs smashed the woeful Cowboys 19-3. The GOAT was well in control through that game. The Cowboys, who had a top 2 offense last season, didn't even show to the party. Maybe Dak Prescott's throwing hand injury was the root cause of that. The Cowboys are going to have to find a solution though, because Dak needs surgery, and Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said it could be multiple weeks without him. Last call on our whistle stop tour is the Russell Wilson Derby. It's not very often you throw for 340 yards and a touchdown, but you end up losing 17 points to 16. That's what happened to the Broncos, and Wilson, he was pretty much outdueled by Geno Smith. The Seahawks quarterback hasn't started a Week 1 game since 2014, completed his first 13 straight, and ended the game on 23 of 28 completions, 195 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Seahawks fans whispering to one another, Russell who? Wilson, meanwhile, still full of praise for Seattle and himself.
So I'm just grateful that I get to be with these guys, you know, in this locker room too as well. I've been around some amazing teammates in the past, and I got some amazing teammates currently, and I'm going to remember every single moment of that. So tonight was special. You know, it was on the other side, you know, than I used to, but it was still a special environment, so a place that I've always loved.
Another whistle-stop tour of the weekend's games coming next week on Utter Punts. Thanks very much to me for rounding that up and doing a mighty fine job of it. May I say? I don't think I missed
more monologues from Liam.
More. Less. Fewer monologues from
Not
me,
who?
Definitely. No. Let's talk briefly, shall we, about fantasy football? Everybody happy to talk about fantasy football?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan's happy. Dave, how did you get on?
I lost, but I felt like I was a moral victor. I picked the team. I paid attention for the dismal goings on over Sunday, and I think all in all, my levels of commitment meant that I should have won, and I was beaten by a better computer mind on the day.
Yes, bottom of the table, Dave. Second bottom of the table, Dan Horton.
So third, okay, our game was a sort of classic example of fantasy, wasn't it? That it was quite close, and then there was a spell of about 5 minutes in the evening games where Darren Waller, for me, drops a pass in the end zone, and he was well open and should have caught it. And at the same time on red zone, Travis Kelce scoring a touchdown, as is Justin Jefferson for you, and the protected went sort of 40 points into your favour, and it was then impossible to bring back. But it's a long season. A long season.
I am aware how long the season is. The reason that I am celebrating this as hard as I am is that I'm concerned that this might be my only opportunity to celebrate quite this hard. I do have Justin Jefferson to thank for an almighty points haul this week. If you have Justin Jefferson in your side, singularly, probably the biggest point scorer in fantasy this week. So
the only
maybe
positive,
Patrick Mahomes might have been pushing him close.
The only positive is that a lot of the, Justin Jefferson, we absolutely bleated about how good the Vikings were going to be and how easily they're going to beat the Packers, and he really helped us prove that we know more than most other people. So I took the loss with gritted teeth.
Yeah, but I mean, we did say quite clearly, as we've just heard in that roundup there, we said quite clearly why on earth are the Vikings underdogs at home in this game, and the point was proven. Look, we got every single game prediction that we made last week 100% correct, Dave. Do you reckon we can do the same again this week?
Yeah, if we keep Darren Browning everybody and I go one way and Dan goes the other, we've got everything covered.
Yeah, it's almost like we know exactly the way to play the system. That being said, we are going to talk a little bit later about a potential train bet that we're going to start. So we'll talk to you about that in a bit, but essentially it's even money bets every week between, I think we said week 3 to the end of the season, potentially taking you from £1 to 100 grand. So if we get that right and you get that right, we could all end up in the money. And if that's the case, we're having a very big utter punt party at the end of the season. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Let's look first, shall we, at the Chargers at the Chiefs. This is the Thursday night game. I think it's Amazon's game in the States as well, isn't it? So it's their first Thursday night game too. This is an absolute peach. It's a real toss-up between this one and Vikings at Eagles as to what's the game of the week for me. This one has been chosen as the Thursday night game, a real early season test for both of these sides, Dave. They were both excellent in week 1 too.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to the quarterback duel that we're going to get. All in all, I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think that they have started the season in a way. Okay, so for the opening day, they beat who they had in front of them. But Patrick Mahomes threw touchdowns to 5 different receivers. They've reconfigured their offense completely. And I don't think that the Chargers are going to be that much different. So all in all, I think that the advantage at the moment, due to trading away Tyreek Hill, which I never thought I'd say, is probably with the Chiefs.
Is it too easy, Dan, to ask if this is basically a battle between Mahomes and Herbert for the win?
Yeah, I think it is. If all teams fit, I think this would be a lot closer than sort of 6.5, 7.5 on the handicap. I disagree a little bit with Dave. I think the Chargers defense is outstandingly improvement on the Cardinals shower that we saw last week. The Cardinals look terrible, don't they? So, and I think what the Chargers did against the Raiders, who are a good offense, was really slow them down. Khalil Mack, I think 3 sacks on the day. Joey Bosa on the other side. Derwin James looks like he's back to full fitness.
Khalil Mack, by the way, said that he'd had a really poor performance. 3 sacks. He was responsible for 3 out of the 4.5 sacks that they got last week. Came out afterwards and said, no, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah, and
how many
that Raiders O-line
did he get?
Yeah, that Raiders O-line is pretty good. I'd say it's probably better than the Chiefs. I think the Chargers can really slow the Chiefs down. But I'd have been leaning towards the Chargers, I think, other than Keenan Allen isn't going to be playing, and I think that affects Herbert. Herbert was he had the fewest yards in the AFC West quarterbacks last week, even though they won and he looked so good. But they slowed down massively when Allen went out. I mean, they're wide receivers after him. DeAndre Carter, you can jump in whenever you recognise one of these names. Gerald Everett at tight end, Trey McKitty. Anyone, and obviously Mike Williams, but Mike Williams only had 30 yards in week 1.
Wow. And
they slowed down as soon as Allen went out, and my fear is they just won't be able to go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs this time, and it's a shame because I think it would have been a really good game. The points total in this is too high. They're saying sort of 55, 56 points, and I think I can see it being a lot slower than that and a lot tighter than that. The Chargers are going to have to use MVP Eckler a little bit more, and I think they'll slow it down a little bit. But I think Dave's right now. I think it leaves just towards the Chiefs. Had it been the other way around and the Chiefs had lost Travis Kelce, I think you'd lean with the Chargers. I think the Chargers losing Keenan Allen is just as important to them.
I've seen a fair bit of Khalil Mack. He's been with the Bears, and when he beats an O-line and it's a quarterback who's not particularly good at moving, i.e. Carr, he will get to them and he will bring them down. He's not quite as effective against Aaron Rodgers, just with the additional mobility that Rodgers has. And Rodgers has been working behind an O-line, which has been suffering with injuries for a while. And that's why I don't think we're going to see Khalil Mack be as effective this week. I think Mahomes, even though in the AFC Championship game, he did hold on to the ball too much, was under pressure a lot. The mobility of Mahomes is what the difference is in this game, because he's no longer looking for that deep ball to Hill and looking for that knockout shot, and he can just pick whatever pass he's after. I just think it's the additional options that lead me to conclude it won't even be close this time.
We shall wait and see. Man to watch, I think, has already been mentioned for me. Travis Kelce scored the opening touchdown last week. 8 receptions as well. Going to be really difficult to keep him quiet over the course of that game.
I'd probably go Chiefs to win, and you can sort of usually get a double up and sort of like a match, like a combo bet. I'd go Chiefs and under 57 points. I think it probably makes sense. I think it's probably about 6-4, 7-4, and that's probably just a starter for the week. But it is probably a game I'd just sit and watch and enjoy. I don't think it's one where you can make much money because the Chiefs are favourites, probably rightly. They could either win close or they could absolutely blow the Chargers out. So I wouldn't go near it, really. But if you wanted to just have a bit of fun and maybe get some money for the weekend, I would go Chiefs and under 57 points.
I think that's perfect.
Well, I mean, that works.
Genuinely, it's perfect. I think the Chargers will be able to do enough to keep the points down, but I just don't think they're going to put that many on the board with the wide receiver room that they're putting out there. It really is a disgrace now that Allen's injured.
I was impressed with the Chiefs' defense a bit more, Dave. I know it was the Cardinals, and I'll keep saying it. You've got, and this is why we don't do the trade bet till week 3, because you don't quite know what you've seen until then. But the Chiefs, Carl Loftus, the rookie, looked really good, and I think they had a pass rush for the first time in a few years. So I think their defense will be a little bit less porous this year as well.
Yeah, Carl Loftus fell down in the draft further than I expected him to go. Yeah.
Let me tell you, I'm going to let you into a little trade secret here. I've been trying to move that conversation on by interrupting you two for the last 4.5 minutes, and every time I try, you just trample over me. So now that I've actually got the microphone...
What do you make for the second round running back, Dave?
Keep talking until everybody shuts up so we can move on to Bears at Packers. You pain in my arse, honestly. Bears at Packers. Huge comeback win for the Bears last week. Are we putting that one down to the weather and saying... actually they're just as terrible as we thought they were, or has it changed anybody's mind?
No, they're terrible.
That's a really lovely answer. Let's move on. Packers have got the hoodoo on the Bears. They've won 6 straight. Is it more of the same, given how difficult Aaron Rodgers found it, finding receivers, finding options last week? He didn't have a great time, did he?
No, but what we said last week was the game plan for the Vikings had to be to go for the throw early, and then obviously them converting on a 4th and goal, taking the lead, getting a sort of big lead, put through the game plan out the window. It's exactly what we said, and it's what happened. The Bears aren't going to do that. The Bears will allow the Packers to play their game, and this will be an absolute monster bash. They're going to take full revenge here, the Packers, I think. The only thing I've looked at is sort of Aaron Jones receiving yards. I think the line's about 42, and I think he'll go well over. I think he'll be their top receiver this year.
I mean, 2 ends of the quarterback spectrum in Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, neither of them have got masses in front of them. You're going to have to go with experience winning the day here, Dave, I think, aren't you?
Yes, unless it's another weather game. The great equaliser. But it is very much in the ballpark for the Packers to try to run up the score in this one, just to announce to everybody that they're back. Against the Bears defense, you only really need to send wide receivers going long and then try and hit the tight ends under the middle, because they tend to have their safeties sit a little bit deeper and then come crashing down. So you need big-bodied receivers in there. So I reckon that Tunyon, the Packers tight end, he could have a decent game this week.
So we're going to see pretty much what we saw in the Giants game last week, that dink dunk all the way up the field. Is that how we're thinking it's going to go?
Yeah.
I'm guessing we're saying, if you wanted to have a go at Packers to win and over 40 points scored in the game, you're probably going to be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, because I think, like Dave said, I think they'll make a point this week of scoring as many points as they can just to prove the offense isn't broken. But there's a few sort of revenge, sort of we are who we thought we were games this week, and I think the Packers you'd roll in as a sort of maybe an accumulator. I think there's a few teams, like we've already mentioned, the Bengals on the road at Dallas, I think's bloody solid. I probably think the Raiders against the Cardinals is probably one. We'll talk about the Bills Titans shortly, but I think you'd roll the Packers into that. Maybe the Rams, I think the Rams are at home as well, aren't they, against the Falcons? So there's a few where you'd say we're going to go and revert back to sort of Rams, Packers, Bengals in the treble. You'd probably be better off as a safe bet.
That would do nicely, I think. I'm not going to contradict anything Dan said there when he's talking sense. Carry on, Dan.
Are you feeling all right, Keno? Because normally that's exactly the time where you jump in and have a bit of a pop. When somebody's making perfect sense, that's normally the bit where you are in your element.
That is true, but as you know, today we're currently recording during the first half of the Birmingham City game, and I need to go.
No, that's fair enough. That would also explain why your internet connection is so terrible. Tennessee at Buffalo is their next game that we're going to talk about. I'm going to throw it out there. Is this the easiest prediction we're going to make this weekend?
For me, it's slightly easier than picking the Dolphins over the Patriots last week, yeah.
Was that the easiest pick for you last weekend?
By far, yeah.
And this one's even easier. Dave, this is a straightforward Buffalo win, isn't it? You can't see it any other way, surely.
How many points did Miami get last week?
20 points, yeah.
And what was the over-under that you took as a safe bet, Dan?
19.5.
Yes. So, well done for being correct, but it was mighty close.
Money's in the account, Dave.
yeah. I'm not going to. But that is irrefutable. I can't argue with what you said previously, though. Yeah. Again, carry on.
I will. Dave's just like, hurry up, Blues are on. Stephon Diggs, just let's talk briefly about him, because clearly he's going to be Allen's main target this season, and you can see why. He's so hard to control, Dan. Is there any chance that Fulton's keeping him under wraps for the entirety of this game?
Not for the entirety of the game, and if they put Fulton on Diggs, they'll just hit Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox, and what I was impressed with the Bills, and obviously we did say that they had the potential to really destroy the Rams last week, was they've come in where they left off last season, and they played sort of 3 or 4 perfect games at the end of last year, and I think they didn't punt again on Thursday night, which is the 3rd regular season game out of 4 when they haven't even punted, which is the first time since records began, I think. So they're just clicking on all cylinders, and unless there's an injury or a problem, I don't really think you can stop them. You've just got to try and outscore them, and the Titans aren't going to do that.
Not with Derrick Henry making 4 yards a carry or whatever it was last week, Dave. They need some options, Tennessee, and I'm not sure they've got them at the minute.
No, unfortunately not. Without a viable wide receiver to at least draw some attention for running game, you can stack the box. You can set things up so you've got multiple players crashing down into a line. You can watch the film to work out exactly where we're going to be sending Derrick Henry, and even a behemoth like him can't shift everybody every play. So yeah, they need to be more creative. I don't think they're going to be. Tannehill looked a little bit shell-shocked at the end of that game of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, when Derrick Henry gets out Derrick Henry'd by the New York Giants, you've got some concerns, I think, Dan.
Dave, how long do you think that they'll stick with Tannehill? I mean, bear in mind, we picked the Colts to win the South, and I think that was purely based on the fact that the Titans we thought might take a regression this year.
Yeah,
but we talked earlier about sort of a transition of quarterbacks, and the Titans drafted Malik Willis, who's a sort of a Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson type. He is very raw. We saw that in the preseason, but he's that X factor. And how long do you think they'll keep Tannehill there? I mean, I know they've got a tough start to the season, well, Giants at home, but they're not going to beat the Bills. They're going to be 0-2. How long before there's a change in Tennessee, do you think?
Well, I think if a general manager and a coach believes in a quarterback, they will take them in the first round. So they've experimented with Malik Willis. They've taken him in the third because he was good value as a high tools, high upside prospect. But until he starts playing in a way where he is giving Mike Vrabel what he wants from his offense, and he was literally yelled at in the preseason for having kept a player alive and making a fantastic completion down the field, because it wasn't what he wanted from him. So I don't know if Willis will be the guy that ends up coming in, but if they struggle, if it looks like they're not going to be making the playoffs, then they will put Willis in just to see what they've got and see whether or not he can become that viable option. But I wouldn't be expecting any clamour before, say, week 9, even if things were going badly. I don't think it's one where there's going to be enough pressure to get Willis put in, because Tannehill has taken them to the playoffs on multiple occasions now. Can he get them over the hurdle? Maybe not, but I don't think that this coaching staff believes that Willis is the man who would do that instead at this point.
Where's the value? Given that we've said that this is straightforward, is there any value in Tennessee Buffalo, or is it one to steer clear of?
I mean, I can't see Buffalo not covering the point spread. It's minus 9.5, and they did that, doubled that over the Rams, so that they'll cover the spread. But the Bills are one I've got in sort of the accumulate we spoke about. So you go Packers, Bills, Bengals, 49ers, say, and it's paying nearly 3-1. So I would maybe just roll those safe bets and put them in together.
This next game's, I don't know why this isn't the Thursday night game. I don't know why this isn't the showpiece event of the week. For me, Vikings at Eagles is 100% my pick for the week. This has the potential to be an absolute firecracker. We'll let the Vikings fan Dave Keane start, shall we?
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I have very unhappy memories of Philadelphia.
Could somebody just hold on? Could somebody just take a thermometer and just go and check on him? Because he's been polite, he's been courteous, he's not cut across anybody, he's not been argumentative, he hasn't called anybody a C word yet.
Right now, you're getting the best behaviour you're going to get from me, but I'm keeping little mental notes about what's going on here. I know that you're elongating this deliberately. I know that we could have done this in about 15 minutes if we'd hurried. But anyway, no, we will probably try to get a little bit of revenge for them dumping us out of the playoffs after the Minneapolis miracle, when Stephon Diggs beat the Saints with the clock hitting 0. It was a great day. The following week, watching the Eagles absolutely knock the stuffing out of the Vikings was not so good. We've met since. We've beaten them since. They've beaten us, I believe. But all in all, there's a different feel right now. The Vikings fandom currently believes again, which in its entire history has been a mistake. So I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon right now. I hope that we do well against the Eagles, but I think it's going to be a very tough ask on the road. The fans in the stadium on the weekend were very much on the side of our offense. That's going to be the opposite. I'm very interested to see whether or not we can still stay as aggressive on the road. I think the Eagles are going to beat us. I think it will be close, but I do think they're going to beat us, and I think they'll probably do it via the run game, whether it's hurting us with his legs or their running backs. I know, I'm good at this.
Remains to be seen.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I do think that we're probably going to lose, and I think it will be because we weren't that great against the run. If Green Bay could have kept the running backs in the game, and I don't know why they didn't have both of them on the field more often against us, to be honest, go with the 21 set. Or 22, but they didn't. But I think that Philadelphia know and believe in their run game, and I think we're going to get tested on the road against an offense which is playing to our weaknesses at the moment. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really difficult. If we win, I'll be delighted, but I can't see it happening.
I think it'll be really difficult. I think this could be an NFC Championship game, or certainly a playoff game. I think you're right, Dave. I think the run is the problem. The Eagles had 3 different rushing touchdown scorers at the weekend against the Lions, in sort of Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, all scored touchdowns. They ran for over 220 yards on the Lions, and I know I think the Vikings are a bit better than the Lions, but I still think it's a tough beast to stop, especially when they've then got AJ Brown as well, who went for over 140 yards in the air. I mean, if Jalen Hurts can play like that, I think it's difficult to stop. He's almost in a category with Josh Allen with that sort of dual threat ability. Mm-hmm. But I think we underestimate how good the Vikings played on Sunday, and the difference in tone that they set. With Kevin O'Connell going for it on 4th and goal, that would never have happened under Mike Zimmer.
Very true. Very true.
We sort of exchanged a bit of a joke, didn't we, in the group, sort of saying that Mike Zimmer sat at home going, "Why didn't I have Justin Jefferson?" Hang on a minute, I did.
I would say to that though, Mike would have gone for it on 4th and 1, but he would have been a crash run straight up the middle with a fullback in the game. There wouldn't have been anything else going, and he would have been stuffed and he'd have been surprised. So yeah.
We're already mentioning Justin Jefferson here. He gives Kirk Cousins a genuine first receiver option that he looks for first up constantly. There is a danger that you can overuse Justin Jefferson. it's quite an easy thing to defend eventually. If you know that that's where he's going first time every time, it becomes easier to defend, doesn't it?
It's not the way
potentially,
we set up our offense.
No, and you could say that. Look at Devontae Adams last couple of years in Green Bay with Rodgers. Everyone knew where it was going. You just can't stop it. Justin Herbert's a quarterback that will make his receivers look better. Rodgers is the same. I think Justin Jefferson's one of those receivers that can make his quarterback look better. I think Terry McLaurin's done that the last couple of years in Washington as well. I think he's a talented guy, and I think he could still cause damage. I just worry about the amount of time Cousins is going to have to throw the ball, and I could see the Eagles getting to him and putting him under pressure, and we know that when the lights are on and he's under pressure, it can get a bit messy for Kirk.
Look, I'm aware that because we've got an extra game this week, we are going to have to keep things moving. Also, Dave's desperate to go and watch the football, so let's talk Bucks at Saints next. These games were announced really late on Wednesday. Like, we were expecting them to come earlier today, potentially even yesterday. They were announced today, but Bucks on the road again against Saints. Dave, how do you see this one going?
I expect the Saints defense to get to Brady more than people have already this season, because he doesn't have an offensive line in front of him. But I don't think that Winston's going to be able to keep his production going. Mike Thomas scored 2 touchdowns from nowhere. I mean, shout out to him because he's been injured for 2 years. I didn't expect to see him playing to a high standard again. But I'm going to go with the Bucks because I'm fed up of trying to bet against Brady. I think you summed it up previously.
I did. And Tom Brady looked great, but I think you've got to qualify that with Tom Brady looked great against the Cowboys.
This is what we said before, and this is why you don't really go too heavy week 1 and 2. What you've seen, you've got to make sure you saw it. Your eyes can deceive you in week 1 and week 2. The last 6 regular season games, the Saints have won every one of them. Brady, no Brady, they've won the last 6. They've done the double over the Bucks the last 3 years. Jameis is high risk, high reward, and the Falcons gave them all sorts of trouble and made the much vaunted Saints defense look a bit poor. I think the Saints could upset them here. I think they've got more firepower. If Godwin looks like he's still going to be out, I think the Saints with Thomas, who looked every bit like Michael Thomas, and Jarvis Landry. Chris Olave looked good on a 2-point conversion. He looked sharp. Kamara wasn't really used, but he looks like he's coming back to full health. I think the Saints could overpower the Bucks, and I would take them on with the handicap here. I think
you take them on with the handicap. You disagree?
I do disagree. I think I'd go with the Bucks, but like I say, it's mainly because I'm fed up of betting against Tom Brady. The Saints didn't particularly impress me week 1. I thought they were very much in danger of proving my belief of a very little bit of a paper tiger correct, and I can't see, even though we're going to be at home, I can't see them beating Tom Brady Bucks. Not at this point under this coach.
I think I'm going to side with Keno here. Once bitten, twice shy. Don't bet against Tom Brady is where I'm going. We shall see. Dan's looking at me going, I can't believe you've done that to me. I haven't got one wrong yet, and you've just gone against me. Finally, Seahawks at 49ers, and the Seahawks have got a new fan favourite in at quarterback. They were chanting, Gino, Gino, Gino. You've got 2 words written for this, Dan. What are the 2 words that you've got written?
Bloodbath.
You reckon the Seahawks are going to transfer? Is that you?
There's trouble coming. It's one of those. I think it was just revert back to the sort of Bucs Saints. The Saints only just won. The Bucs look like they won easier, and I think it skews the odds a little bit. When you look at the Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh are playing the Pats this weekend, which is just a hate ball for me. And Pittsburgh get a real boost because they won, even though they definitely shouldn't have done. And the Pats get stonked and then get boosted because they're the Pats. And I think this is a little bit the same. The 49ers, the market is closed on this game because the Seahawks won, even though it was 2 goal line stands and they got outplayed massively by the Broncos and should have lost. And the Niners, who played basically in a swimming pool, and they couldn't throw the ball. Their running back went out, and they had no time to readjust. I've lost a bit of power with the bookies because they lost. I think this is great value with the 49ers at home. I think they're going to absolutely destroy the Seahawks. I think this could be an absolute wipeout.
Are you saying that Trey Lance's experience in the last game isn't really relevant to NFL experience because it was so wet? It's not really fair to say that counted for anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the game, obviously I like Trey Lance and I want him to do well. So I've watched the game a couple of times. There were some times he couldn't even hold the ball. It was that wet and it was slipping out of his hands. But
how do we know that's not just the norm for him because of how little experience he's had and how little exposure we've seen of him?
Dave, they were doing water angels on the pitch.
Are you 100% sure it was down to the water?
There he is. It's
Dave.
taken him 40 minutes to get here, but he's arrived.
He's arrived.
Finally.
We knew in episode 1 that
It's
Trey Lance was the
half-time now.
battleground, didn't we? And here he is. Week 2, Trey Lance is the battleground. Listen, we'll see. Trey Lance's passing line for this game is 242 yards, go over. The 49ers, Rod's on, go over. They're only giving away 7.5 points, go over. Brandon Ayuk is only getting 67 yards on the line, go over. This is going to be a bloodbath.
Any advances, Keno? I mean, I'm sitting back and enjoying the battle.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was just enjoying trying to undermine Trey Lance's one true game of NFL experience. So I'm done there. We'll leave it.
It's really tough, isn't it? Because we talk about NFL experience like it's the be all and end all, but actually these kids have played enough college ball, which at points is harder than playing NFL. If you listen to people that watch a lot of college ball, they'll tell you just how competitive it is. It's a pretty good breeding ground.
But, and I'll point this out before, 290 attempts, 202 completions. He hasn't got that body of work. And I don't think he even played that much in high school. But that's beside the point. Dan loves him.
I hope he gets MVP this season.
We'll see.
Oh, it's the 2-minute warning hooter. The 2-minute warning hooter has sounded. That means we've got 2 minutes to give you our utter punts of the week nominations. Dan, why don't you lead us off?
Zach Taylor, head coach, Cincinnati Bengals. There's a touchdown ruled off in the game, which was a millimetre into the end zone, and then another one that they didn't even review, and it was quite clear that Chase caught the ball. It was on his hip. He had 1 foot in the end zone. The ball had to have been touching the plane, and they've not even reviewed it. They instead opted to kick a field goal, which they missed. Game went to overtime, and they lost. Zach Taylor, you utter punt.
Fair enough. Keno, your vote for utter punt of the week, please.
I'm going to go with Andrew Berry.
Again.
But this one is a little bit more left field. Basically, the Browns commissioned the brand new logo for the middle of their pitch for their home opener, and it's called Brownie the Elf. And my issue with this is the fact that a brownie is, in its own right, a mythical creature. So what he's essentially called, this character, is Elf the Elf. And I don't know why they've done this.
Okay. Jerry Jones is who I'm going with.
Yeah, you win.
Just a massive weapon, overly talkative. Pretty sure he's broken all of their HIPAA, the health giving away patient confidentiality information when he basically told the world exactly what was wrong with Dak Prescott's thumb, how long he was going to be out, what surgery was required, the fact they weren't putting him on IR because they wanted him to train with a broken weapon. Utter punt of the week, Jerry Jones.
That said, Jerry, if you do want to come and sponsor the podcast, we're more than happy to take your call.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, and I loved your stadium, Jerry. So it's not us talking, it's just Liam, you idiot.
Right then, just time left to tell you about what's going to be happening from next week. All right, so from next week, from week 3, we're starting a train bet. Dan, can you explain the technicals of it?
Yeah, so instead of looking at a sort of a big bet every week to sort of try and win loads of money, we think the safest way to do it and have a bit of fun is to do a really safe bet, or so what we think is a really safe bet, or a bit of against the odds every week. Obviously, there's no guarantees with this, so we'll take it as we go. And it's your money, and you can do what you want with it. But what we would say is, and a few people have reached out to me on Instagram, and I've said, look, if you can get off the train anytime you want. We're not going to get off. We're going to go week 1, try and turn £5 into £10, which will be week 3. Then week 4, we're going to turn that 10 into 20. 20 into 40 the week after, and so on and so forth. And we're going to let that train ride. If every week all you want to do is have a bit of fun and watching the Sky games and turn a fiver into a tenner, then just do it as a single bet every week and cash out. But I think for fun purposes, we're going to sort of let it ride through. We have had some fairly heated discussions about what we'd do in week 16 when there's £80,000 in the account. Are we actually going to put it on the Steelers losing at home, because I hate them? But we'll cross that bridge hopefully when we come to it. What I will say is that Dave and I put in sort of 2 or 3 to each other this weekend, and they all came in with a bit of room to spare, other than the half-point win for the Dolphins. But, we're looking at all different things. We've spoken about it a little bit, about passing yards, rushing yards, quarterback passing yards, total points, handicaps. We're going to look at every single market, and we're going to find an even money bet, which will either be 1 or 2. It may just be that we say the Bengals will beat the Cowboys, and take 3 points off, and that'll be our even money bet that week. Just stay with us. We'll put it on the socials after the podcast, but the best way to listen to it is download, subscribe, and listen to why we're picking them.
Yep.
And when we get to 50 grand, we'll then have the argument on the podcast as whether or not we're getting off the train, right?
Well, that's the weekend of your wedding, Liam.
Yeah.
So I think
this is the kind of the point. Like if we're sat on 50 or 80 or whatever it might be, we can have a discussion at that point as to whether we're getting off the train, can't we?
We've got to stay on the train.
We can't stay on the
we can't ask people to follow us if we're getting off the train.
I want to stay on the train if we've got £80,000.
Choo choo.
If you get off the train, you are a traitor to your kind.
I just call myself an utter pun. Like, subscribe, share with a friend. We want to get this out there. We think that we're doing a pretty solid job in terms of giving you what you need in terms of NFL reviews, previews, and betting tips. We would love it if you shared us with somebody, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. We'll see you next week. Cheerio.